69% of people would respect a brand to care more about a social media platform's ethics than the number of people that they can reach. It's my big face on a screen, which is always a little bit overwhelming. OK, so I'm Annabelle Baker. I'm Lush's Global Brand Director. And I've been with the company since 1998. Please don't guess my age. The lighting is good for me. I want to ask a quick question, actually, for those people that sit in and listening and bustling around now. How many of you sat in the audience, like hands up, had a MySpace account? Anyone? Oh, there's a few. Yes, OK. Anyone still have a MySpace account? No. Oh, yeah, OK, we do. Oh, well, yeah, we do have one. I suspect mine's probably still dormant somewhere, too. And Facebook started as a platform that for like hot or not. But I think we can all recognize today that no one's actually using that platform in that way anymore. I think my mum is one of the only people that I still know that's still posting on Facebook, and she's certainly not using it for that. And so these platforms, they're transient and they're ever-changing, and yet we are obsessed about whether or not we are on them or not. So how can you diversify your social media strategy away from these platforms and still stay relevant? And if you don't have to pay for them, that could be even better. So over the next 18 minutes, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what happened since we switched up, how it's been going, and also a bit about our work with the Future Laboratories, which is a foresight consultancy group that we worked on, looking at what is the future for digital in the next 10 years and beyond, and also a social framework for how digital spaces, platforms, and engagements could be. So let's have a look and see how it started. So Lush inherently is a social brand. I think when we switched up social, people were like, oh my God, what are you doing? We were built as a community by a community of founders. And when social first launched, it was everything that we were looking for. We actually had online forums, but we had MySpace accounts, Facebook accounts, and they were a great way to connect with the community. But then things started to change, and social media, the balance between social and media split, and these platforms became more media than they were social. And in fact, through the research that we've done with the Future Laboratories, 44% of people that we surveyed feel that social media is, in fact, no longer social at all. And with that has come monetization of our data, for these platforms to be places of harm for our well-being, rewarding toxicity, amplification of mistrust, and all of these things are kind of moving forward. And we couldn't ignore what was happening with the Cambridge Analytica scandal. And then when Frances Haugen's whistleblower report came out, showing that 12.5% of young girls in the United Kingdom, when using Instagram, had an increased rate of suicidal thoughts afterwards, it was a catalyst for us to make a change. And that change you can see here. So these are some of the headlines that garnered when we made that social switch up. And in fact, we've done it twice. We actually did it in 2019 with the UK, and then globally we made that move in November 21. And this one we quite like, the anti-social media gangster, as a headline. But let's see what the community said. So you can see Carly at the top left there thought we were progressive but ballsy. Danielle was quite happy that someone other than her mum might see her Facebook, Instagram posts. Tyler thought we were going to have an epic business fail. That was 2019. We're 4 years on. The business is not failing. So I think we're grateful for that. And Leah thought we were mad to say goodbye to 568,000 followers. I don't really want to say it, but Leah, there were 8 million followers that we had on the Meta platforms. And we didn't say goodbye to them. We were just switching up how we were going to talk to them. And I think this quote from our founder and CEO, Mark Constantine, is a great way to look at it. When you're trying to deal with the power of some of these tech giants, you have to sometimes get up to a bit of mischief. But mischief and without purpose and disruption without purpose is not what we do. Whether that's us taking Amazon to court and successfully suing them from infringement of our trademarks, or more recently poking Google by trying to register the Google name in Class 3 for cosmetics, because they are using our trademarks in search and profiteering on them. And whilst we know what Google are doing, it's not illegal. We don't also believe that it's right. And when we did the social switch up, we faced an awful lot of support, but we also had a lot of skepticism. Maybe some of you are sitting there in the audience today. Why some platforms and not others? Is it not hypocritical that you didn't come off YouTube and Twitter? Well, at the time, YouTube and Twitter had one of the strongest content moderation systems that were available. Twitter till today is probably a little bit more of a debate, and that is something that we're looking at every day. We were figuring it out, and we still are, and we don't have all the answers, because the point is that this landscape is ever-changing, and you have to be comfortable with the fact that a decision you make today may well have to change tomorrow. But times are changing. And so when we're looking at this, what's changed for us from 2019 to 2021 to 2023 is the fact more people are aware of what's happening on social media. Even if those platforms aren't being transparent about their algorithms and how they're working, more people are interested in what's happening. And the discussion is moving. At the start, it was about, and for us, it was about the impact on young lives. But what's moving is a discussion to the inadvertent usage of social media platforms to disrupt economies and democracies. However, there is now significant movement to legislate, to advocate for change, and there is forging of bipartisan partnerships globally in tackling what is now a much bigger social problem. And 70% of the people that we surveyed are calling for global legislation that protects the safety of their experience online. So how's it going for Lush, you might ask? Well, relevancy for a brand is not about what you post online. It's about how you connect with the consumer in conversation, in the community, with your products. And traditional word of mouth was exactly for that for us. Like, Lush was built that way. That's where we're most comfortable. And that is where you can build a strong enough connection for people that they are going to share what you're doing without you having to be present on these big branded platforms. Whilst not forgetting that a brand is a feeling. It's about what our customers think of us, not what we think of ourselves. And what have we been doing? Well, we've been pretty busy if you've been following Lush. We've been campaigning on banned books, against indigenous land rights, campaigning against the LD50 test, campaigning against conversion therapy. And we've also launched over 200 new products. And recently, we forged partnerships with Glitterbox, Ministry of Sound, and we've also been working on our first tech consumer product, which we launched just last week as part of World Bath Bomb Day. And it's the first tech product that we've done that is ethically made in the UK. So we're going to have a quick check at the Bathbot. We also stepped into the way of collaborations. So collaborations, obviously, we know are great spaces to connect with a new audience, a new customer. And whether that's been in music, film, TV, or gaming, we most recently did a collaboration with what is now the largest animated film to date with Super Mario. So we're going to just take a quick look at the products that we created for them. So any Super Mario Brother fan in the audience, if you're like me and grew up in the 80s with the Game Boy and that game, we actually gamified what is the question block bath bomb. So in there you have power-ups, because we want you to power up your bathing. And you know the hardest thing to get within the Super Mario game and in the film is what? A star. So in fact, the star question block bath bomb is the rarest format out there, and the consumers had a lot of fun trying to guess which one they had and then trying to collect them all. And additionally, you'll know that, well, maybe you won't know, but like, there's a reason why we don't do yellow bath bombs. Anyone have a thought process about why that might be? So in the water, if you can imagine what a yellow bath bomb might look like, and that's also some elements that we get with the consumer feedback. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it just takes a conversation of their own and we just go with it. We also partner with Stranger Things and Netflix. We did this collaboration on Stranger Things Day, which is a community-led day last year in November. We did collectible cards with this as well. And then we also partnered with One Piece, which is a Japanese anime series, but last year they launched a movie. This was a huge success for us in Japan, but also globally, where they have more of a global audience, especially in the US and the United Kingdom. And then earlier in March, we went and did an activation at South by Southwest. So South by Southwest is kind of a leader and a forethought in a lot of tech and innovation, and we wanted to have a positive, optimistic house there, looking at what the future of technology and digital could be as part of that. And we created something, we launched something called the Storyverse. So for any of you Lush fans out there that might know Snow Fairy, Snow Fairy is a fan favorite product, but we actually created this where like shower gels basically talk to you. So we've taken 2D animation into 3D and bringing them to life using motion capture and the power of Unreal Engine, which is typically used in gaming, but we've applied here in the essence of the conversation, and then created a live interactive experience at South by Southwest. We were also super fortunate to host Frances Haugen, Erica Banks, Judy Lee from Pinterest, Kathy Hakel, who's the godmother of the metaverse, at the house. We had like 11,000 visitors over 4 days, 1.7 billion media impressions, and we also launched exclusively the Glitterbox collaboration from here. So we'll just have a quick look at that.
Good morning. It's about how are we relevant in the conversation that we're having with people who love what we love, and when we can meet in the middle, magic happens.
Here's to the kids who live to see a world without walls, to the kids who cross-examine borders, time zones, and language.
Through the sale of one single product at Lush, the Charity Pot, we've raised $78 million to 13,000 organizations. I think the minute that we as individuals and communities own their data, then we have the power to make the change that we want to make in the world.
And here at South by Southwest, we launched this Future Laboratories report. And the reason why we wanted to do that and why I wanted to do that is in 2030, my daughter is going to be 12. And I don't want her on today's platforms. And I wanted to see what was that change going to be like, what were changes that we needed to see, and how were we going to get there. So when we worked on this report, which is available on wearelush.com, so you can have a read through if you wish to. We engaged with 12,000 consumers in the USA, Japan, and the UK, as well as leaders in digital ethics across next-gen digital, social media, big tech. And what we found was, from the respondents, is that 69% of people would respect a brand to care more about a social media platform's ethics than the number of people that they can reach. And additionally, 75% of people that we surveyed felt that brands should step away from platforms that are unethical. Yet today, we are the only international brand that we know of that has done so. But what we can also see is that over the last 12 months, people are spending less time on these platforms than they were previously, particularly within the Meta platforms. Less so within TikTok, but interesting to see the kind of movement between. And consumers really don't want their data used for commercial benefit. And that is a lesson that brands kind of need to take hold of. And as part of that, what's important is that the IRL and URL experiences for someone like me who's a millennial or anyone above, we've existed in a world where we've had both. But Gen Z and Gen Alphas, my kids, they don't have this separation of that world. And so we have to create a digital future where the systems are built, where life is indistinguishable between real life and online. And this is where we sort of started with this social framework, which is a set of 6 principles that we've co-created with the Future Laboratory, which is going to be here, around creating and enabling a techno-optimist future to flourish. The first one being sustainable, and that building any platform, no matter where that is, its environmental impact has to be considered first. That no matter how positive that space is, if we don't consider hardware waste or data, that's a missed opportunity, and that technology can actually help be a tool to combat climate change rather than exacerbate it. And then open source. There's actually quite a lot of open source here today, but we really strongly believe in using open source across all our platforms and networks. And even us as a brand, where you can encourage collaboration rather than competition, we actually opened up our way of making our soap base because we wanted other brands, any brand, to use a palm-free soap base when we invented that. And that's the type of collaboration we want to see in the digital spaces moving forward too. And then community controlled. Like, the data at the moment is not in the hands of the community, and it needs to be. As we move forward in the spaces, and we are already seeing this in like Voice and Twitch, but we need to see more. And the platforms themselves need to be iterative, because digital enhances and it grows in a completely different way to the physical world. So we need to constantly see those tweakments coming through and their iterations for those platforms to ensure that they are accessible and inclusive as they originally were intended to be, but currently are not. Although we are seeing apps like Idaru, which is a real-time, like a realistic life avatar creation, and also TapTapSee, which is for blind and near and partially sighted people. And then finally, it does need to be life-affirming. That when we talk about the IRL and URL, these spaces should be fun. We should be able to have a space that enhances well-being, and these platforms need to engage within that. And we can already see a growth of new platforms, some of which I've mentioned earlier, but some of which you guys will already be on. The question of whether or not they're going to be the next big one remains to be seen. But the point being is that developers, creators, and innovators are creating those future spaces. And there is a bright future ahead. It will just take a little bit of collaboration and perhaps a little bit of mischief along the way in order to get there. And finally, I just wanted to talk about these 2 words and the struggle between both, because the #1 question we get asked when it comes to doing media interviews is around hypocrisy and perfection. But the point being here is that no one individual, no brand, no action is perfect. Everything has a flaw to it, and you will likely be called out to be a hypocrite because you've applied something to X that you have not done to Y. But should that stop you from making a change? Inaction and fear is what maintains the status quo. If we are constantly afraid of being 100% perfect, and that is what causes us to act, we will always stay in this carefully constructed cage. And we are positive about and optimistic about the future of social, and because many leaders globally are advocating for change. We can see it happening already in legislation. And because each and every one of you, I think even sat here, we all know that spending huge amounts of volumes of time on social is not inherently in our best interest or in the best interest of our well-being. And whilst these platforms are powerful, they only have that power because of each and every one of you. So it's time to use it. We have. The question is, will you? Thank you very much.